Haiwei Li. It feels kind of surreal now to be in Castle Quan being interviewed by David Quan himself. My mum accidentally got pregnant with me until my godmother passed away when I was 5, and then I moved back to my biological mum's house. Two families basically, one Kuwaiti, one Chinese. I think wealth plays a really important part. So for example, Kuwait is a really rich country. I just remember living like the Kuwaiti prince lifestyle just to buy the cheaper stuff so she could save every single penny for like another piano lesson. You hit the nail on the head there. I didn't even clock it until like you explained it just then. Having perfect pitches also helped me immensely. 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours days. Practice piano and violin non-stop basically. So bad. I failed like science. The only A I got in was music.
Did I say that?
Oh my god. There's like an inner like spiritual identity that I was the only boy out of 200 girls. If I'm gonna be honest, it was so like physically painful. Like ballet is a bit like piano where it's like it's the foundation. Langland's dad. I bet it has to be election season, right? It can get really toxic. I don't know. It's a gamble. That's such a difficult question because like stop crying for like 2 days. I think that's a really interesting question because legacy-worthy interviews. I'm not saying see their true colours.
Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my podcast, Coffee's on Me, David Quan, where I strive to give guests legacy-worthy interviews that listeners can enjoy while cooking, commuting, relaxing, or walking their pets. The weather here in Cambridge is wonderful, and in just a few days, I will have my final undergraduate exams ever. Thanks to my friends, family, and the community, both here and abroad, I am thoroughly loving the Easter exam term this year. Despite these final exams being worth 100% of my grades for all 3 years of my triposal subject, I'm feeling really blessed to have developed a newfound appreciation for learning. My final exam on Monday will be the paper War and Revolution. Fittingly then, after being asked, I'm excitedly taking up this challenge now to do a special Cambridge Union election series. I am a former standing committee officer and president candidate of the Cambridge Union, which is founded in 1815 and is the world's oldest debating and free speech society. If you are a follower of my social media or the podcast, you may have already listened to my interviews last month with the two current candidates for president of the Cambridge Union, Nick Davis and Ellie Breeze. Following those coffee discussions, I greatly appreciate other candidates also reaching out. I'm admittedly quite tired and sleep deprived after handing out water and sandwiches outside Revs last night or this morning till 2 a.m. and would still like to do some more revision for my final exam. So I'll be doing back-to-back interviews today for the 3 potential debates officers. There has not been as much research on these guests as I would usually do for those reasons mentioned, but I am very excited to be led by curiosity and spontaneity and by the guests themselves. This election series is not at all sponsored and there are no formal partnerships. In fact, as always, I am paying for the coffee out of my own savings, and my aspiration for this Passion Project podcast is, as always, to strive to give my guests legacy-worthy interviews. For this election series, for these back-to-back interviews today, I sincerely hope that beyond the intense public scrutiny these guests may face campaigning, we can most importantly appreciate who they are as human beings, where they have been, are now, and wish to go. This episode is part 1 of 3 for this particular union election series. Anyway, back to the podcast, and just before we commence the proper interview, I just feel very blessed that we are now approaching an incredible 100,000 podcast downloads. Please know that I don't take any of your time, feedback and support for granted, because when I started this Passion Project podcast at a low point of my time in Cambridge, I was genuinely motivated by 3 founding ideals. Number 1, purpose of giving. Number 2, learning from others. And number 3, sharing of stories. These 3 aspirations still make up the content description for every single episode. Indeed, the opportunities to strive to give my courageous and insightful guests legacy-worthy interviews over coffee, tea, bubble tea, or water, or juice, whatever it is, despite my many inadequacies, has been a tremendous privilege that imbues me with gratitude. I know that I will look back and listen back to laugh at how naive I am, but if you have been enjoying the discussions on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts, thank you, and please do consider leaving a review and nominating a guest by contacting me via my Linktree, David Quan. Seeing this podcast on people's Spotify Wraps or receiving positive messages about the guests give me tremendous fulfillment, and I cannot thank my wonderful guests enough for their courage and insights. I genuinely maintain the deep conviction that this passion project, if wholly true to those founding motivations about giving, learning and sharing, is a worthwhile pursuit. Finally, onto my very cool, awesome, and courageous guest. Haiwei Li is a first-year historian at Trinity College, University of Cambridge. Born and raised in Kuwait with Chinese parents, he speaks Arabic, Chinese, and English fluently. In Kuwait, he rose to fame after a video of him singing a Kuwaiti national song went viral, and he also performed the piano, violin, and dance all around the country, including His Highness the late Emir. He received his grade 8 in piano and violin aged 7 and 8 respectively, and in 2017 he was crowned Young Musician of the Gulf in the prestigious music competition in the region for his piano, while also receiving the Best Strings Player award for his performance on the violin. He then received a full scholarship to read at one of the most prestigious music schools in the world, Chetham School of Music, studying under the tutelage of world-renowned soloists Bingbing Li and Jiafeng Chen. Having won several prizes there, including first place in the overall category in the Alderly Edge Music Competition, Haiwei decided that concert pianos was no longer a career he wanted to pursue, and thus transferred to Harrow School as a music scholar with a 95% scholarship. There he excelled academically and musically, even picking up the organ and winning the school's annual organ competition. Haiwei is also an avid dancer, having started ballet at the age of 4, and later pursuing Latin dancing and hip-hop. He received a grade 8 distinction in ballet in 2017 with a record score of 97 out of 100. Wow, Haiwei, I'm just smiling so much because I'm so excited to learn more about your experiences and your worldviews and what you've been thinking, and just welcome to my podcast, Coffees. I'm David Quan.
Thank you very much for having me. I've been listening to so many of your episodes, so it feels kind of surreal now to be in Castle Court and being interviewed by David Quan himself.
That's wonderful. So why did you want to do this?
I think the main reason is really very much fits into your purpose of giving legacy-worthy interviews. I'm not saying like I'm anywhere near like establishing a legacy of my own, but I just think that it's a really good idea to have like so many, especially people in Cambridge are also inspiring and humbling when you speak to them. And it's like, it's just really nice to get to know each other on a deeper level. And I was like, I think it's a good idea for me to tell my story as well, just for myself in the future in 5 years' time, or for my kids.
That's so exciting. Yeah. Obviously, I'm really passionate about this, but I was wondering, because you said you listened to a few, and I'm assuming you've listened to like people who you know as well, and you've worked with in different capacities.
Yeah.
Did like listening to their life stories and what they shared help you, like, for example, better appreciate why they do certain things or why they think a certain way?
Absolutely, because I think like, you never judge a book by its cover, and it's like your interviews give such an insight into people's life story that gives so much more context to whatever they do in university. I think that's the most important bit, because once you get to know someone more, you become more sympathetic towards them, you learn from them. It's just really inspiring. So I think that's the great part about this.
That's wonderful, and I very much hope this is the case with this recording, where obviously you're in for a very public scrutinizing week with the campaign, but I hope that maybe we can just touch on the union at the end, but it's more about you and who you are and your fascinating journey, and I hope you don't get defined by the union.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's very easy to get defined by the union, because that's just part of the process with the elections and stuff. And so I'm just taking it like as if it's just a fun journey where you learn from the campaign, and it's like, if you win, that's great. If you don't win, no one actually outside the union bubble cares. So it's not actually that deep. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it should be good. So I guess for you, do you want to maybe start with 2003 in Kuwait during the Second Gulf War, and start there when you entered the world, or before you entered the world, actually, as we were talking.
Yeah, literally the only reason why I'm coming to this interview is to tell the story. I'm joking. Basically my parents worked in Kuwait, still work in Kuwait, and then they quote unquote my mum accidentally got pregnant with me, and then they kind of like they weren't really in a financial position to raise another child because they already had my sister who's 10 years older, and so they were thinking of aborting me, but they couldn't really abort me because they couldn't fly back to China during the Second Gulf War, just because there was a war going on. But my mum also couldn't abort me because abortion is illegal in Kuwait, because obviously it's an Islamic country. And so my mum was literally about to take like an illegal pill, but then 15 minutes before she took the pill, a Kuwaiti lady called her saying that actually, like, we want the child because like she couldn't have a child herself. So my mum's like, okay, fine, if you raise a kid, then I won't abort him. And then once I was born, this Kuwaiti lady was nowhere to be found. And so my mum's like, oh, I guess I have to raise this kid myself then. So that was gone. And then 4 months later, when I was 4 months old, my now godmother saw me like crying in the hospital bed, and then she knew like my mum was not doing great financially, and she knew she was really busy. So she was like, okay, why doesn't Haiwei just come to my house and you can stay at mine, and then whenever you're free, whenever you're less busy, you can pick him up. And then my mum was like, okay, great, temporary arrangement and stuff. And then during the weekend when my mum did go to her house, my godmother was like, actually, no, he's staying with me and he's now an adopted child, basically, as a joke. That was basically like my family for the first 5 years of my life, until my godmother passed away when I was 5. And then I moved back to my biological mum's house, basically. But it's like we're still very close because she's got a big family, all her daughters have kids now. They live in London, so it's very close. So I'm really, really lucky in the sense that I have like 2 families, basically, one Kuwaiti or one Chinese. And it's like most people who live in Kuwait or like the Middle East, expats, don't actually enjoy it, because it's not like living in the UK or Australia like you do, where it's like, I'm sure you have a connection with Adelaide in the sense that you feel bonded to the community, because you all speak the same language. It's like you're seen as part of the community, whereas in Kuwait it's very much different. It's like you're Kuwaiti or you're not Kuwaiti. Mm-hmm. And like also because most people speak English, so only 30% of the population are actually Kuwaiti. So it's like, it's very much disconnected, like you're just an expat just there working. Whereas for me, because of my Kuwaiti family, and that's because I can speak Arabic fluently, because that was like literally the first language that I picked up, I feel so much closer to Kuwait, and I still consider it as my home, even though they revoked my visa. But no, I just think I'm very lucky in that sense, that to have 2 families, couldn't have asked for more, really. But yeah.
So, why was your mum in Kuwait? It sounded like she was in China.
Yeah, so she was, my mum grew up in a village in Henan. It's like, it doesn't get any more typical Chinese than that. It's like, she was born during the Cultural Revolution and stuff. And it's like, but my mum was always like really ambitious in the sense that she always wants to get out. She always wanted to get out of her village, so she got into like the provincial capital, like best nursing school. And then she always wanted to like leave the country as well, leave China, just to explore the world. And then so during the first Gulf War in 1993, they needed more nurses. So that's when my mum came in. It's like they just like imported nurses from China, basically, and my mum being one of them. Then my dad followed suit after, and so they just stayed there ever since, because my mum just loves the country. She's still there, and then so that's how we moved to Kuwait.
So when they moved, was it just mum and dad, or was your sister born at the time?
No, so my mum moved first, then my dad came, and then my sister only joined after. So she stayed for school in China with my grandparents for a couple of years. So that's why it's like, it's kind of like, it's I don't know, it's kind of complicated because my mum and sister haven't actually spent that much time together. And so my sister's very much like a very independent woman, just because like of her upbringing and stuff. But like I think that's the cost of moving around the world. But at the same time, I'm sure my sister wouldn't change a thing now, being like having been raised in China and Kuwait and going to the UK as well.
So for you having like both a Kuwaiti and also a Chinese family, what are like the similarities or differences?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question because for me, part of the reason why I'm so grateful about it is because it's like I'm exposed to all those different cultures, whereas like even if you live in Kuwait or if you live in Dubai, you don't necessarily fully understand the culture. Whereas I feel like having a Kuwaiti family, it's made me understood that like people just operate in different ways based on like, I think wealth plays a really important part. So for example, Kuwait is a really rich country. The benefits are insane, which is like if you get married, you get a free plot of land for a house basically. And it's like, if your parents die before you're 18, you get their monthly salary when at the time of death for the rest of your life.
Wow.
So it's like Kuwait's like filthy rich. So I think that like informs your lifestyle choices. It's like in my Kuwaiti family, my godmother would be like, oh, like why you? My Kuwaiti godmother would tell my biological mum, why are you forcing Haiwei to learn the piano and violin? Like, let him just chill. Like he's a baby. Like my mum would be like, no. Like he needs to start learning all these skills. Otherwise, it's too late. It's like, I mean, I'm sure as an Asian you'd understand. It's like, one is like very competitive. One's like, you need to like devote all your time. Like time is gold. Devote all your time to, just like improving your craft. And the other one is just like laid back. I think that's probably the most salient difference. And I think other differences include just like, I don't know. I think it's more subtle. It's like it's in the daily life, right? Whereas it's not like a general thing I could come down to. But I know I think that's made me who I am. That's why people say I'm quite like eccentric, because like not a lot of people. Okay, people may have been like infused by Asian and white culture, but not necessarily Asian and Kuwaiti culture. But yeah, that's that.
So did other people perceive you as more Chinese or more Kuwaiti?
I think in Kuwait, more Kuwaiti, because like I was literally the only non-Kuwaiti who could speak Kuwaiti. When I say Kuwaiti, that's obviously Arabic, but like Kuwaiti has a very like strong dialect. And so I spoke like proper Kuwaiti. And it's like every time I would say something, that's why like, for example, I'd be in Starbucks, and I don't know if you know, but the Starbucks in London and Manchester are full of Kuwaitis, especially after 7 p.m. And they just like talk about me, for example, because like they're quite judgmental, and then they'd be like, oh, this guy's got really small eyes, and like I just like say something in Arabic, I'd be like, oh, like you think so? And they're like, oh, what? But no, I think people perceive me more as Kuwaiti in Kuwait, just because like I kind of stood out in the sense that I spoke Kuwaiti fluently in school. But I think my work ethic and my identity right now is probably more Asian, just because like, first of all, you don't get many Kuwaitis in Cambridge. You have like 2 MBA students, but like, it's just more like, oh, I wanna work really hard. I wanna do this. I wanna do that. I think that's much more Asian than Kuwaiti. But I personally feel very Kuwaiti. Like my 2 identities, Kuwaiti or Chinese. I sometimes feel very Kuwaiti. Like I just blast out Kuwaiti music all the time in my room, for example. I'd like watch Kuwaiti TV shows. So yeah, I think that's something I'm really grateful about as well. It's like switching characters.
So I guess before age 5, before she sadly passed away, was it just normal for you just to have 2 mothers? Did you call both of them mothers? I
mean, I don't, as you could probably understand, remember much from before age 5, but I just remember living like the Kuwaiti prince lifestyle, in the sense that like my Asian family is obviously like not financially like doing that well, but then my Kuwaiti family is obviously like Kuwaiti, right. And I was raised by like, with like, we had like what's it called, maids basically in Kuwait, which is like every Kuwaiti family has at least 2, so I was like raised in that kind of lifestyle, which is so like crazy to me right now, because like my lifestyle now in Cambridge is like but no, yeah, it's very much,
so that was switching. Like normal for you?
Yeah, it'd be like, you'd wake up and then, I mean, like technically that's what they all call them like in Kuwait, like maids, but like she was like basically my 3rd mother. Wow. Her name is I call her Yaya affectionately, and she passed away last year suddenly. She was like, that's like, so for example, my current Kuwaiti families, like the little kids, they feel just as close to their like maids than as to their mother. So I was really, really close, because like when I'd wake up, she'd be the first person I see. She'd like help like make my breakfast, lunch, dinner, everything. She'd help me change. She'd help me go, like if we went anywhere, she'd be there. Wow. And so it's like, yeah, so I guess when you said like 2 mothers, maybe like 3 mothers. 3 mothers. But like, yeah, so lucky. Just talking about it now, and actually processing it like is I don't know, but I think because my godmother never really allowed me to go back to my biological mom's house because she just really liked me. It's like I just never spent that much time before the age of 5 with my Chinese mum.
So was there like a formal arrangement made, or was it just a informal? Because I mean, for your biological mum to trust someone to take care of her kid, I mean, it's not a small thing, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's because my Asian mum could definitely tell that my Kuwaiti mum is a good person, and it's like, it can't be a scam, right? It's like she I don't know. My mum's also a very trusting person. Like I haven't seen my mum in 4 years. My sister hasn't seen my mum in 8 years, but she just trusts that we do well in the UK.
Right.
And I think it runs in the family really well. It was just kind of independent. It's like my mum probably was like, oh, it's fine, Haiwei can just do it. Like,
do you call her often?
Yeah, I call her every day. Like I think that's like
so it's very tight emotionally.
Yeah, communication's very much still there. It's very important. But
speak Chinese when you call her?
I do speak Chinese, yeah. But like I don't know, sometimes like the odd word here and there, I'm like I speak in English, but then my mum's English is not good, so I'm like sometimes we go to Arabic. it's like yeah, just switching. But no, I do really want to see I'm going back to China this summer, so hopefully she can be there. But if not, another time. Yeah.
So was your godmother looking to adopt a kid, or did you just cry so beautifully that...
Maybe it's that. No, I don't know. I actually don't know why. Like, I know. I think fundamentally it comes down to she's a really good person, just from the bottom of her heart. Because
be so giving and
literally,
loving.
Be so giving and loving, and like to actually be willing to take someone and give them their all, like treat me like her actual son. I think it just comes down to her as a good person, very generous person. And also she really likes my mum because my mum's like her nurse in the hospital. And then like, I think they had like a friendship before she saw me. So I think it's a combination of all those. But
so, I mean, just how you came into the world, the fact that you got into the world and ended up kind of where you are with the different families and being adopted, was it just pure luck, or do you feel like there's some like religious or spiritual, like how do you personally conceptualize the chances in your life of like it's extraordinary?
I don't know. I think. Do you mean up to now or up to like?
Yeah, up to now, like your story isn't common. Do you personally feel like it was just pure luck, or was there some...
No, I think I'm a passionate believer in like, if you're a good person, good things will come back to you. And I think my mum's a very good person. My mum's really generous. My mum's someone who just can't like, if she has money, she can never save it because she'll always spend it on others. Like she'll put my education first, but she'll always like be just generous to other people. Not just in a financial sense, but just like helping people. For example, working in the hospital and like arranging medicines for people, for her friends or whatever. I think my mum was probably like really kind, and then she was probably really kind to my godmother, and then my godmother probably saw that, and that definitely played a factor in her ultimately taking me. But I think like that's really important. But at the same time, my luck until now is very much down to my mum's hard work, in the sense that she's invested an incredible amount of time and money as well into my education, which like I'm sure you understand, like Asian parents like very much like education first. It's like I don't think I'd be anywhere near here without her and all the investment, because like ultimately like having such a good education and learning all these stuff, they cost money. And then like my parents still don't earn much, but she would just like go to like the cheaper supermarket, which is like 45 minutes away, instead of the one that's like 10 minutes away, just to buy the cheaper stuff so she could save every single penny for like another piano lesson. That's why it's like, wow. My mum would always be like, so growing up in Kuwait until the age of 14, at least between 5 and 14, living with my biological mum, I've only been out like going to restaurants maybe like once a year maximum. The other times would be like vouchers that my mum's friends would give her. I've never really been to to shopping malls. Like, it's just not part of my life because all the money went into piano lessons. And then my mum would never blink an eye for like, you know, an equivalent of like 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds an hour for a lesson, piano, dance, whatever. And it's like, without that, without her pushing, without her consistency, yeah, nothing would be happening. I think it's a combination of being kind and actually investing. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's incredible. Very inspiring, and I think the love that parents show to their kids, it's unconditional.
It's unconditional. Sometimes I just question, like, if I'm gonna be a dad, like, can I actually replicate my mom's? Like, like, I'd actually want to go to restaurants a bit more than my mum did. But no, yeah, it's very lucky.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you had that dual life of, on the one hand, living like a prince, and on the other hand, really seeing the tangible inequality, feeling it yourself. Just how hard life can be from a financial standpoint.
No, you hit the nail on the head there. I didn't even clock it until, like, you explained it just then, in the sense that, like, that's why every time, for example, if I had a performance, my mum would be like, if you perform well the piano, or if you do well in this thing, then I will allow you to go to your Kuwaiti family for 2 days, because that's like Prince's lifestyle. I'm like, okay. So it's like, it's such a contrast between living the hard life, like, literally. My mum and dad would constantly, like, talk about, oh, like, the rent's due. It's like, what are we gonna do? Like, oh, what are we gonna eat for dinner? Like, it sounds crazy to me now because I no longer live that lifestyle, because I'm so lucky that I get, like, a bursary from Trinity, for example. And it's like, right now I live, like, comfortably with enough pocket money in my account. But in Kuwait, my mum was very much like, it was a very hard lifestyle, and then so it was like juxtaposed with.
So children often have these I guess ways of looking at things where, well, why don't you just give money? Like, why don't you just do that? Did you ever try and think about solutions of, you know, maybe helping your Asian family, like, oh, mum, why don't you just do this, or why don't my godmother just support you, or why don't you just move in with us? Did you have any ideas or visions?
I don't know. I don't think I was like, I think from a young age, my mum always wired me as someone who's like, just focus on your own, like, focus on the piano, focus on the violin. It's like, focus on your own lane, and I'll worry about the financial bit. She would never like,
you do your job,
yeah,
I'll do my job.
Exactly. She'd keep it very separate. The most, like, that would affect me is, like, when she, like, has arguments with my dad, and it's like, we live in a small house, and, like, that would kind of affect me. But it's like, other than that, she's like very much like, leave it to me. Like, even now, for example, like, I'm going back to China this summer, and I'm gonna have, like, all these lessons. That's gonna cost a lot of money. She's like, Haiwei, don't worry about it, like, just leave it to me. Right. So it's, I think, like, with the godmother bit, like, I think as much as she is my godmother, as much as it is my second family, like, at the end of the day, you can't fully merge two families together. Like, I'm the link between the two families, but fundamentally, you are two still separate families. So it was never, yeah, I guess that was never really my job. My mum never really made that my job. And my mum's ethos is very much work hard now, and when you're an adult, that's when you start worrying about money. Right now, as much as I can still afford, like, for you to go to lessons, leave that to me.
I guess losing anyone in our life is difficult, let alone at such a young age. My mum passed away when I was 12, and obviously a very significant moment and turning point and journey. But for you, your godmother passed away when you were 5. How did that, even at that age, alter the dynamics perhaps between your families, and how did it change your lifestyle?
I think first of all, I was very lucky in the sense that it didn't really alter the dynamics, because I was so, like, fully ingrained in the family already, that, like, because it's a big family with cousins and daughters and just everyone. It was like I was very much still in there, so like, we're still really close. But I just remember the passing of my godmother was such a monumental moment for me, because it was like, she was my everything, and it's like, I don't even remember how I processed it, but I just remember it took a long time, and I still think about her a lot. But yeah, I don't know. I think everyone expected it to come because she had, like, severe heart disease, but yeah, I don't know. I remember processing it quite, because I'm quite an emotional person, right? It's like if I watch a film, I'd be like very like emotionally invested in the character. It's like when she died, I was like, I couldn't stop crying for like 2 days. But I don't know. I guess you just have to.
How does in terms of Kuwaiti culture, like dealing with a family member passing?
I was just gonna touch on it was perfect because like I think that's the beauty of. So it's obviously an Islamic culture. You don't think of it as my godmother passed away. You very much process it as if she went to heaven. So
it's a celebration.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it celebration, but it's like people. So for example, people in funerals wouldn't even cry. Some of them, but not because they don't love them, but because they went to heaven. That's the beauty of it, and that's what people kept on telling me when she passed away, and that definitely helped me process it. It's like it's very much viewed in a religious context. I don't know, like as much as I'm not a religious person myself anymore, I think growing up obviously in a very religious Islamic family has still made me think and like conceptualize things in life in ways which are religious, like oh, I'm being rewarded now for my mum's kindness in the past,
right? Or
like as I said, like my godmother passed away, but that's because she's very kind and she's going to heaven early. I think obviously
it gives you that hope. And
it gives me that
explanation.
Hope. And I think explanation. People surely like, oh, that's just you adding meaning to it, but I don't know, maybe.
So part of you actually do believe, and you.
I believe in. Sorry.
Part of you believe in that extra meaning that other people may accuse you of adding.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely do believe in it. I think not only does it help me process things, but I do think that, you know, having lived for 19 years now, there's some things which is like as set as the laws of the universe. Yeah. In the sense that like things just keep on happening. Whereas like this, like a person, like karma will always bite you back. Like it happens repeatedly. And it's like every time, for example, if there was an initial disappointment, it would turn into a good thing. And it's like that, like always happens as well. So I don't know. I can't believe in that, but
that's that's definitely beautiful. So at age 4, your older sister, I think she's 10 years older than you.
Yeah.
She found out that you had a very special talent that you could understand musical notes and keys correctly without even watching. So, yeah, do you remember that moment?
I don't remember that moment specifically, but my sister just said, like, because she plays the piano all the time. And, like, I still don't know if perfect pitch is something that's God-given or is nurtured. But my sister, like, would practice every day. Obviously.
Well, yours clearly wasn't. Oh, you might have listened to it and just...
Yeah, maybe because she practices every day. And I was like, that's just wide in my brain. But she just tested me one day and then found out I had perfect pitch. And I was like, okay, he should learn the piano. Having perfect pitches also helped me immensely, like musically, in my musical journey, because there are just lots of stuff where it just makes things easier, it just makes the progress faster. So that just helped me kickstart my music career, and I don't know, the rest is history. 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours days, practice piano and violin non-stop, basically. That was very much my childhood. That's also why I like to go to my Kuwaiti family, because I mean no practice for 2 days. But no, yeah, I think my sister has played an incredible part, because I think sisters aren't supposed to be your second mums, but my sister was my second mum, basically.
How many mums did you have?
I know, I'm so lucky. No, but it's like so like my sister was very much like doing her A-levels, for example, when I was like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, when she was still in Kuwait before going to university. Instead of like focusing on her own piano, instead of focusing on her own A-levels, she just like devotes so much of her time to just sitting down next to me and just watching me practice. And that's like incredibly useful, because most people, if they start 5, 6, 7, 8, I'm sorry, you don't know what you're doing when you're practicing alone at home, and your parents don't know anything about it as well, so you're just wasting time. Whereas I feel like I'd say 90% of the reason why I progressed so quickly was because of my sister, because she was a pianist, and she, like, every single wrong thing I would have done, she'd be like, just corrected it immediately for free. So it's like for 5, 6 hours a day. So definitely I owe so much to my sister. And I still owe her now, because like coming to the UK as well, she also helped me academically so much. She's also the one who like was my guardian the whole time I was in school in the UK.
That's incredible. I think I definitely relate to how important that support was for learning piano. For me, my mum didn't play the piano or wasn't musical, but she actually did her own homework and tried to learn music and annotated everything and tried to guide me and tried to learn through the online resources, which again in retrospect is that back to that unconditional love that parents show where they
I think
just go above and beyond.
That's incredible of your mum, because so my sister's a piano teacher now, and she identifies like parents split into like many categories, but one of them being like those who just send their kids there, pay the money, and then like leave them. And one's like your mum who actually do their own homework, because that's like everyone,
it's that relationship growing together.
Like everyone can spend, like not everyone, but like a lot of people can spend the money and pay for the lesson and then just go away. But it's very rare for people like your mum who would do the homework themselves, because that's
especially if they were not musical.
Exactly. That's like that's a whole different challenge, especially when you're like an adult now. It's harder to take in a whole new aspect of art. So yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. So for you then, given that music was already quite deeply entrenched in the family culture, especially with your sister, were you always like destined to basically do music, or did that moment of realizing your talents kind of kickstart this, or was it just an acceleration of what was inevitable?
Yeah, no, I think it was always destined to be music, right? My mum, it was just all about music. There was nothing else, no other alternative. And so it's like, my mum, for example, up until like year 8, well, as long as I was in Kuwait, I never did one single piece of homework. My academics were like so bad. I failed like science. I failed like so many subjects. The only A I got in was music. And it's like my mum would even do my homework for me. She'd
just
be
so
like,
you could do
just
more
so
music.
I could practice piano while she was doing my homework. So that was very much like music part. But then I distinctly remember, because my sister went to a conservatoire in Manchester. She went to Royal Northern College of Music, and then so she experienced it all, the whole music life. She knows everyone in the music industry. And I distinctly remember, like aged 14 or 15, she once sat me down and she was like, "Haiwei, I don't think you should go to a conservatoire, and I don't think you should pursue music anymore." Like, as you can imagine, that was like I was like, that was so shocking to me, because that was what I've been doing for a decade preceding that, for 6 hours a day, and you're telling me all that's going to go down to waste. But then I think so it was mainly my sister who pushed me to leave music, because she was like, "Look, realistically, you're never going to be a langman, right? You might be really good, but you're not going to be top. And like what she said is really true. It's like, I like to give the analogy of like tennis players. If you're not top 100, you're never going to win a tournament, like a major tournament, and you're never going to earn like serious brand deals from it. And like, it's going to be a very hard lifestyle. So that's very much with music. And my sister was like, she went to a conservatoire so she could teach me whatever I wanted to learn anyways. So what's the point of me going to another conservatoire? And then so she was like, you should try and do something else. It took a while to kind of adjust to that, as you can imagine. But I think that's the best decision, like, ever. I'm really grateful again to my sister for that advice, because I wouldn't have changed a single thing now doing history at Cambridge, because, you know, you broaden your horizons. There's so much more to life in music in life than just music. And yeah, I would much rather be, you know, I don't know, a lawyer than a music teacher now, probably. But yeah, that's kind of when it changed, and that's why I moved from a music school to an academic school.
Speaking of London, obviously he romanticized or idolized in Asia or in China, and I remember when I was a kid, there was that documentary about him, London, I think. Winter London, and it just showed his dad forcing him to play the piano, and it's that stereotype of, you know, Asian family perhaps forcing their kids to do music.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were forced, or were those 4 or 5 hours just like, oh, you just loved it so much?
I think that's a really good question. I think starting from a young age, I was forced, I'm not gonna lie. It's like, I think unless you're like so incredibly passionate about classical music, there's no way you're telling me when you're 4 or 5 or 6 years old that you were not forced to practice 4 to 6 hours a day, because it's mentally grueling. it's like it requires an incredible amount of discipline.
So 4 to 6, I'm assuming that's not completely straight. You have breaks. Like, walk me through a typical 6-hour session.
It'd be like, okay, in a school day, my mum would literally so we finished school at 2:30. So my mum would cook lunch at home, bring the lunchbox so I could eat in the car, so that as soon as I get home, that's straight to piano practice basically. And then like I did like a lot of like other stuff when I was young as well, like gymnastics or like Indian dancing. It's like so like those were like usually 5 to 7 p.m. or diving, for example, 5 to 7 p.m. But like after like 8 p.m. after dinner, again straight back to it. And that's why like, you know, usually when you're before the age of 8 or 10, I'd say like, you know, you'd sleep before 9 or 10 p.m. But I would like sleep at 11. It's like just but I don't know. That's maybe why I'm a night owl now, but that was very much the routine. And then in terms of like going back to like whether I actually like love classical music, I think there are moments when I do love it. I think there are also certain pieces, like for example, I much prefer the Romantic period than Baroque or classical. Sorry, Bach or Mozart. But yeah, so I think like it depends on the pieces, but I don't think I ever had that like burning passion within me about classical music. I think that's part of the reason why my sister told me to not pursue it, because like she probably saw that and she probably clocked that like you can't get to the very top unless you have that burning desire within you. But I think as I progressed, as I got older, it was not like more love for classical music as it was more almost addiction to the physical aspect of pressing the keys of the piano. That made me like to practice more. It's like when you just play scales or like just the piano every day and you just press the keys, it just becomes like a routine and a habit. And I would call it an addiction when you're a bit older. It's like, it's just, you wake up and if you don't practice for the whole day, you're like, oh, something's missing here. Oh, maybe it's the piano. I think that plays a big part. But I also think the second reason why I started to like practicing more and more is when you get better and when you start performing and when you get all the rewards of performing, like whether that be financial rewards or like just the privilege of playing in incredible places or winning competitions or people praising you, like that obviously pushes you and incentivizes you to work harder. I think those two are probably the most important driving forces.
Wow. So when you won first place in the 2010 Chopin competition in Kuwait in the under 12s category, you were age 7, I believe. So at that point, when you won it, you were quoted as saying it made you realize your talent for music. So at that point, did it feel kind of this addiction of, wow, like this is my ticket to good places in life. This is my way of earning respect and appreciation from other people, and this is like me.
Yeah. I don't know, I think learning piano and, okay, obviously winning competitions and performing everywhere and getting validation from it is a big aspect of it. But at the same time, I think it was more for myself than for other people. I think my mum was just like, my mum like just said the main reason why she made me play the piano was just so when I'm 60, 70 years old, I had a hobby. Because my mum doesn't have like a skill that she can practice now. Like when she's retired, she can just do all the time. She was like, so I just want you when you're retired, just to be able to have a piano in your home and just like play Chopin and just enjoy your final years. I was like, thanks, Mum. And then she was also like, it's also just to have something to fall back on as something just to make a living with. So yeah, I think like that's kind of like the main reason. I think the competitions are obviously like a great byproduct, but I mean, I lost quite a couple of competitions as well. It's like, so it's not always...
the best of us then.
Yeah.
So, I'm just thinking, like, as a child, if you were winning all these things, practicing, other people were praising you and validating you, and you were playing in front of, like, presidents, prime ministers, and other, like, distinguished personalities all around the place, did that add to a sense of identity that, like, perhaps you were the best? Like, you're pretty, really just superior. Like, not necessarily a bad way, but did you feel like whatever you do, you had to be the best? You had to be really, really good?
Yeah. I think so. But I think So basically, because Kuwait is such a small country, like there wasn't really like that many like talent musically. So it was easy for me to be like the best in Kuwait. But then as I got into like progressively more competitive environments, to Chetham School of Music, then to Harrow School, then now to Cambridge, I just became a smaller and smaller and smaller fish in a bigger and bigger pond. I think that's made me, I think I probably had that much more when I was 13, 14 when I first came to the UK than now, because I've been humbled for a long time, for a good 5 or 6 years. But I still think very much like, if I'm going to do something, it has to be really good. Because, I don't know, maybe it's like the Asian mentality, maybe because my mum thinks of it that way. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing in the sense that as long as it's not toxic, as long as you don't project it, as long as you don't, try and show that you're better than other people, because most of the time you're not. And as long as it's just a motivating force for you to do better, to improve, that's the most important thing. It's for self-improvement rather than for external projection and validation. That I think this feeling is quite valuable to have.
In an interview, you mentioned that you don't consider yourself a child prodigy, but honestly speaking, like, was that more of a humility thing, or did you actually just consider yourself quite an quote-unquote ordinary boy who tries to be the best?
Did I say that? Oh my god. I think that's an interview I gave to like a newspaper. That's I know. I think whenever I tell people I got grade 7, I got grade 8 piano and violin when I was age 7 and 8, people get like really shocked. But I think, as I said, like that's not because I'm a prodigy. That's because I'm very lucky in the sense that all like the aforementioned support systems networks that I have, of my sister, my mum investing time and money, the love that I have from my Kuwaiti family. Those are all things that other people don't necessarily have, and I think that's like what helped me become who I am, rather than me being a prodigy in any way. I think the only thing that's helped me, like, from genuine within me, is the perfect pitch bit, but other than that, not really. I think it's very much down to the hard work of my sister, my mum, and everyone else around me, and my teachers, because I also had incredible teachers as well. Still have incredible teachers. So that's why I like to say, like, I probably gave 10% of the input to who I am today. I try to do my best, but without the other 90%, I'm nothing.
Before we move on to ballet, which I'm really keen to learn more about, you describing music, you said, music is about life and your experiences, which helps make your music more unique and interesting. My experiences have really helped me, not only as an artist, but as a person in general. So what I find beautiful about it is almost like you're growing with the music. The music shapes you, but then you then shape your music. And I guess, like, for you, before you got to high school, into the selective kind of music school, in retrospect now, how did you see that dual force of you shaping the music and music shaping you? Like, what does that actually mean concretely?
I think music, I haven't mentioned this, but I think part of the reason why I do like performing is because you get to choose the story you want to tell. And that's why I think I got progressively better, because with more life experiences, you become more mature, and therefore you become more musical. I think, for example, me winning the Young Musician of the Gulf in 2017, I remember distinctly, like, when I started learning that piece from scratch, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this properly. And then I was like, I thought of a really good story, like a personal story that fitted well with the music. And so I was like, I'm just going to tailor this whole music to that story. And then I think if you genuinely project that through your music, that's what makes music truly beautiful. I think vice versa, music also helps me in life, obviously. So it's very much mutual, like mutually beneficial, symbiotic relationship. But I think that's as I grew up. For example, when I got to perform the Rach 2 concerto with my school orchestra, that was such an amazing experience. But I also felt like I gave my absolute best, because that's when I felt like, obviously that's the oldest I was ever have ever been in life. But I also like just chose to tell my story, and choosing to tell my story, that's such like a cliche thing to say, and that doesn't necessarily mean like every time I choose a specific story of an event that happened in my life, but it's just there's like an inner like spiritual identity within you that you are able to project musically, which is very hard to describe in words, but it's very much there for the music, in my opinion, at least.
So I guess superficially, when you tell a story through a concert, is you pick the piece that you think is most relevant. But obviously when you do perform, it's where you place emphasis, or you know how its volume, its expression, its facial expression, it's their entire package of a performance, where you could be playing the same piece technically well, but then a few years later with that life experience, it as you said, a deeper spiritual and meaning and connection. What are some of the pieces that you have actually perhaps mastered or thought that you'd mastered, and then later on went back and was like, wow, like this is like far more beautiful and more touching than I, as a teenager, perhaps could appreciate at the time?
There's so many. I think that's part of the reason why I like romantic and more modern, like late romantic, for example, like Tchaikovsky or Rachmaninoff, Chopin, because they give you more room for expression. They give you more room for emotions, and to play with it. I think like a lot of the Chopin nocturnes, for example, so beautiful, and it's like, I mean, I don't know, I was never in like a proper relationship, but like it's like when I was 15 and this like girl that I really liked, and I was like coming back to after like the whole crush thing, it sounds really stupid, but it actually like helps you mature a lot like musically, in the sense that you just, there's something inexplicable about it.
Why do you think music has that power? Why is that the common language that we all understand it? What about it moves people and touches people?
I think because it's so relatable, but at the same time it's so open to interpretation, in the sense that it's the same melody. Everyone playing the same piece is playing the same melody, and so there's a degree of commonality there, because everyone's personal lives are, you know, related or like similar to a degree, but at the same time the beauty of it is that extra final layer of detail and touch that you get to choose, you get to input, that you get to show how you're unique. You're David Quan, I'm Haiwei Li. But also I think sometimes like it just comes down to like Chopin's just a good composer with good melodies. I think a lot of the times credit has to be given to the composer.
So do you think the composer, obviously we're all individuals and we come from our positionality is inevitably influenced by our own life experiences and intentions, but do you think a good composer then, in your opinion, tries to compose in a way that others can also openly interpret their work and find meaning through their work? Or do you think composers actually try and assert a certain ideology or feeling or emotion?
I think first of all, like, every composer in different periods obviously has wildly different music, right? Just because like Baroque music is just Baroque music. It's very different from Romantic music. I think that obviously plays a massive part in like how we perceive the music, because they're literally like structured differently. But I don't know. I think composers compose for many reasons. But I definitely do think that they want to assert their own legacy. They want to assert their own style. I don't know. I'm doing a music research paper next year for my history, so hopefully I can answer the question better next year. But no, like I think that's part of the reasons. Like growing up, I was so focused on the performance side of it, on the you know, hand gestures, facial expressions, the to woo the crowd bit.
Yeah.
That I kind of neglected the actual music itself, because my mum was very much like, oh, like you have to perform well, and performing well equals to, like, flash your hand after this little chord, or like bop your head like in this little passage. Like that was very much the focus. That like the music side of it was kind of neglected, which is why like I was really grateful to go to Chetham's, because that really helped me understand.
Did you compose?
So no, I also like just don't like composing, because so we composed for GCSE music because it's part of it, and then the reason why I don't like composing is because I'm not really good at like inserting different like minor thirds or like techniques that people use. I like to compose like in the sense of improvising on the piano, just on the whim, or on the violin. But in terms of actual composing, I'll leave it to the professionals.
But are they actually, like, obviously they're really accomplished composers, but do you feel like you need that very high level of theory and musical understanding to make great music?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. That's why I wasn't good, because I wasn't really good.
So you can't be a layman who just be so-called small C creative. It has to be big C.
It's not as
subjective.
Yeah, it's not as easy as like, oh, if this person has the inspiration, then they can do it. No, I think it requires like first of all, you need the fundamentals, you need the basics of the music knowledge before you can actually layer up.
Right. Ballet, you received a distinction in grade 8 BBO ballet examination, the highest mark with 97 out of 100. I mean, I don't know the exam, but like 97 out of 100 sounds really, really good.
No, I know. I was very surprised. I think like,
what is that exam?
So it was just a ballet like equivalent of like the grade 8 ABRSM piano exam. It's like you just do like bar exercises, you do floor exercises, and then you like. I forgot the specifics, it was like 6 years ago, but it's just like a normal exam, and it was, I think the fact that I was the only boy out of like 200 girls probably helps in school. But no, it was.
How did you start? Quite an
so
elegance.
Again, it was a bit like piano. Where it's like my mum was kind of like, just do it, because in Kuwait, again, it's a very small circle. There weren't that many teachers, and so my teacher was a Chinese teacher who was my mum's friend, and she was a dancer in Royal Ballet dance school or something. So it was a very rare opportunity to have such a good teacher in Kuwait. So my mum's like, definitely take it up. And then it was just a consistent 2-3 times a week. And then it'd be grueling. Like it'd be when I got older, it was twice a week, like Thursday and Saturdays. And like, if I'm gonna be honest, it was so like physically painful, emotionally painful. Like I'd wake up on Thursday morning dreading after school ballet. I'd sleep on Wednesday evening being like, oh, tomorrow's gonna be hard. Just because, not because I don't love it, just because like compared to piano, we just sat there, move your fingers a little bit. This was actually like tough for me. But no, I wouldn't change a single thing, because it's taught me so much, and it's also allowed me to branch into other dance forms as well. So.
Did you watch Mao's Last Dancer?
No, I haven't. Is that a Chinese documentary?
I think it's based on a real story, but very much the protagonist, went through the rigorous regimes of ballet, and it would just always kind of etch in my mind of the physical pain, as you were talking about with, your feet's got to be a certain way, and you got to hold that position.
Splits, oh my god. Should do like a more like 200-degree split.
Right. But I understand with like piano violin, it's the kind of the common starting pack.
Yeah. Typical Chinese boy.
But ballet is not that common. And how did she come to this foresight that actually ballet would also be a great complement to...
Again, I'm so grateful to my mum, because like if it was me, I'd be like, Mum, like, come on, ballet, I'm a boy, whatever. Like, and then because Kuwait is like a very Islamic society, and no boy really ever did ballet. I was like the only one, and like I'd get mocked at it in school, and like in Kuwait I'd feel kind of insecure about like the fact that I did ballet. Like I was always worried if people perceive me as like feminine, because like for example the way I walk, it's better now, but it's like I would still like walk like
elegantly, and
I wouldn't call that. It's like I would like first position kind of walk. But no, it's probably the best choice ever, because for like ballet is a bit like piano, where it's like it's the foundation dance you want to do, because it helps with every single other. Whereas if you start with hip hop, you can't do ballet when you're 16. You can do ballet when you're 4 and still do hip hop when you're 16. It's not too late. It's very much like the foundation thing to do. And I'm also really grateful, because ballet has probably taught me arguably more than what piano and violin has taught me, in the sense that it's a different level of discipline, it's a different level of consistency required, it's a different level of, I would literally say blood, sweat and tears.
Yes.
Blood, it's like... It's actually... But yeah, no, again, my mum's also like quite eccentric. Like, for example, she'd make me do Indian dancing. She'd make me do like Bollywood dancing. She'd make me do like learn all these niche Chinese instruments every time I'm back in China. She'd force me to take Latin dance. Like she's that mum who just wants her kid to try everything, which is like incredible, because I think as a parent, helping your child be exposed to all these different crafts can only help them in the future. I think, yeah, so that's down to my mum's foresight. But no, I'm definitely like, I embrace ballet so much. Like I want to get back to it, but obviously being in Cambridge is a bit difficult with time. But yeah.
So being one of the few, or if not only, boys
in Kuwait, yeah, probably.
In Kuwait at the time with music, you were saying earlier how you had that crush at 15. Did you ever, how did you think about like dating or relationships during your teenage years then?
No, I think in Kuwait, like, Kuwait was very much a conservative society, like very conservative. Like we were, like I have a friend who was quite a good friend as well. She suddenly left our school, no contact whatsoever, ever. And then like, there were rumors that she might have been killed because she did something with a boy. So it's very much like that. And it's like, the girl that I was kind of like semi thing in Kuwait was also in a very religious family. And so it's like, for example, she can't have any male followers on Instagram. She can't be like seen out in public, just her and a boy, that kind of thing. And so, I don't know. It's very much very religious. I think it's...
You weren't really thinking about relationships.
No,
It just wasn't really an option.
It's like, yeah. But also I did leave when I was 14, 15, so it's like kind of early for that. And then after that, I mean, I did go to a boys' boarding school for 2 years and just focused on getting into... At Chetham, I focused on getting into Harrow, and Harrow I was focused on getting into Cambridge, so not really much time for that. But yeah, like Kuwait's a weird one. I really hope my friend's okay. But yeah, that's it.
So, difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations. That was actually the title of your interview with the newspaper, which derived from the quote that you mentioned. When you hear difficult roads, I'm thinking of the plural of the different path that has been taken. What have been, when you look back, 3 of the most difficult roads that have actually led to beautiful destinations?
I think definitely the financial struggle in my Asian household, that was by far the main difficult road, because that was like the only thing that affected me mentally. It's like my mum would constantly worry about money, about the rent, about the food. So again, really grateful in the sense that I get to experience both worlds, both, the hard life and the Kuwaiti lifestyle. I think that's definitely the main thing. But I don't know, I think, and I wouldn't call the other stuff necessarily difficult roads. Like, for example, the piano thing, whereas like just, obviously I would sometimes complain to my mum here and there, but I was always acutely aware of how lucky I was to be able to go to all these incredible piano lessons with incredible piano teachers and have a piano to practice on, because there's so many people who want this opportunity but can't have it. Like, so who am I to complain about having to practice 6 hours a day on piano? Like, that is a privilege. That's a massive privilege. So I don't know, I think I'm quite lucky. Like, I'm very lucky in that sense. Like, I'd say that the financial struggle, but the financial struggle at the same time has also made me so aware of how lucky I am right now in the UK, being like not having to worry about rent, not having to worry about anything, about anything financially. But I guess that's the beautiful road, because that's the bursary and scholarship that I got from Trinity, and the scholarships I got in school, and like otherwise I wouldn't have been able to afford them because they literally cost like over 40k a year, pounds. So yeah. So I guess you could say the difficult road is the practicing piano, violin, ballet really hard. That led to the beautiful road of the scholarships and being like, in incredible educational institutions now. But whether they were actually difficult roads is debatable, because they were, in a sense, very lucky roads for me to be able to drive on.
So, a very general question, and intentionally so, just for you to take it in the direction you want. But do you personally believe that so-called difficult roads or tough circumstances are a prerequisite to beautiful destinations or good things? Like, I say, like, do you feel like you need to struggle to get to somewhere good?
That's a really good question, because I was wondering about that as well. But for example, being in Harrow School, where all my friends, like, unless you're a bursary holder like me, most were just at least multi-millionaires. You also get a lot of hardworking people. You also get a lot of incredibly talented people, whether academically, musically, or sporting-wise. They probably do have, like, difficult roads that I don't know about, because obviously, financial stuff is not the only difficult road that you can have. But I don't know. One of my really good friends now is excelling in every aspect, but he never really had, like, a difficult road, or at least he didn't tell you he did. So no, I don't think so, because I think my work ethic, yes, it's derived from the financial struggle, but it's also derived from my mum instilling in me the work ethic, and my mum could still instill in me the work ethic even if we didn't struggle financially that hard. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe, like, it's easy for me to say that now because I've already experienced a difficult road. But yeah, I don't know. Debatable.
So let's go more into maybe the life at Chetham School of Music, which is quite renowned. Obviously lots of selection processes go into it, and you need to be at a certain level. And I was just wondering if you could maybe paint the picture of what the culture is like at the school. Obviously being very musical, but what's that like? I'm very curious.
It was I don't know, it was a big step up, because obviously from Kuwait to Chetham's, like, again, there were just so many incredible pianists, whereas, like, in Kuwait, I was literally, like, young musician of the Gulf. But at the same time, I don't know, I wasn't that shocked about it, because I was always prepared with the competition, but I kind of just embraced it. So I worked even harder musically. I'd outwork everyone. I'd, like, practice until the school closes, like, the school practice room closes every night at 11 or 10. And it's like, so, and then I got, like, second place in the school's piano competition at the end of my time there. So it's very much like I embraced the competition. I embraced how everyone's so good at everything. But then I also embraced the new culture, because that was, like, the first time I was in the UK culture, or Western culture, whereas before it was always Arab or Chinese. But yeah, it was a really good time. It was, like, I'd say probably, yeah, along with Harrow School, some of the best years of my life. I've only lived 19 years.
Victoria, Millgate, or New College House, which one were you?
I was a day student, actually, because my sister works in Manchester, so I lived there. And then, yeah, so I was a day student, but I really loved the school, so I would stay until very late. I always get told off by it, because the school's in quite a dodgy area. And, like, to be fair, I did get mugged. So, as first year, I came back at, like, 11 because they were playing football. And then, like, I got mugged straight out of, like, the gate. So after that, like, never again. Never again after 7 p.m. But no, yeah, day student. Yeah.
Are you still in contact with any of your friends during that time?
I'd say Chetham's is one of those places where I haven't been able to, like, really fully, like, connect with people as much as with other places. Probably mainly because I was so focused on getting into Harrow School and getting good grades in my GCSE, and also,
so it wasn't just music anymore, it was actually...
Yeah, it was like first year was music, second year was academics, because it was GCSE years. But then, like, COVID hit in March, so, like, that kind of cut it short as well. But no, yeah, so, and also, like, you know, as I said, like, I probably don't have as much of, like, a passion for classical music as some of the people there. And so a lot of the chat was, you know, in break time would be about, like, Mozart and stuff. Like, and I just wouldn't be able to join in.
Right.
But yeah, so it's like, it's kind of different people. But it's good
so at that point, were you still a big fish, or are you more of a medium fish?
In terms of, like, my piano level.
Just your music and your overall social standing in terms of music.
I think the fact that I had perfect pitch helped a lot, in the sense that, like, even in the school, there weren't that many people who had perfect pitch. And I'd say as I said, like I embraced the competition, so I think I became a bigger fish because I wanted to become a bigger fish. And then there were like, I don't know if you know, but Curtis and Juilliard are like two of the most insane. It's like the equivalent of Oxbridge for pianists, but it's in America. And like you had a couple of people here and there who would join that, but I'd say like by the end of my time, how do I put this? No, yeah, I'd say at the end of the time I was like up there, but
you can speak honestly.
That's just my opinion. No, yeah, and then like the head of keyboard, who I'm really grateful about. So his name is Murray McLaughlin. So basically, funny story. They gave me an offer initially to join the school with no scholarship whatsoever. Couldn't afford it, rejected it. They came back another time, 25% scholarship, still not enough, rejected it. Another time, 50%, rejected again. And then it was only like when it was like almost full basically, I was like, okay, I'll come.
That's where the 95% came from.
Yeah. But 95% is Harrow, but with Chetham's it was similar to that, but it was more close to full. And I was like, okay, I'll take the full opportunity here. And then, to be honest, I kind of backstabbed the head of keyboard because like, you know, the money's coming from the school. And if I'm going to leave after 2 years in GCSE years and not like stay to the end and win competitions for the school and like do good stuff for the school, then that kind of like...
Their returns haven't...
Yeah, like they misinvested basically. So when I was like, oh, I'm going to join Harrow, like McLaughlin he was kind of like felt backstabbed, which is fair enough. I felt really bad, but at the same time I had to put my like career first, my future first, because I thought it was the right decision to move on. But he was like, oh, you have to stay. You have the potential to be like, you know, one of the like just like win like Chopin competitions or whatever.
So essentially, in terms of music, it would have been better if he stayed. But in terms of academics, you thought it was better to go to Harrow.
Oh yeah, music is like top education institution in the world. Like couldn't have asked for that.
So do you think he kind of said that and put that pressure, also partly out of what he perceives to be in your best interest of music, or was it just his own ego of, oh, we have invested in you?
No. He's an incredibly kind person. I owe a lot to him because I wouldn't be where I am today without the opportunity that he gave me to first go into Chetham School of Music before that became a springboard for other stuff.
Right. So
it was definitely like he definitely thought I had potential, which I'm very grateful, like very flattered. But at the same time, as I said, if I can't be at Lang Lang, I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want to risk like just missing out on the top band of pianists, because that is like financially brutal later down in life. So like he was very much like, he can do it, and he was thinking for my interest, not only for his interest in schools, but I was like, I think academically like it's the right step to move on. Yeah.
So essentially it came down to whether you want to go all the way with music. That was basically the crux of the decision.
That's basically it, yeah.
So I understand with, you know, piano, music, sport, acting, drama, there's always the on the one hand, the allure of, oh, if I make it, then life will be wonderful and it will be perfect. Yeah. But then you suddenly realise it's a very minority that actually gets it, or entrepreneurship, for example. So do you feel like, had you had more of a certainty that you could be in that upper group, then you actually would have just gone for it?
Absolutely. I think I get told this by a lot of people. Even all my best friends are like, mate, you were so good at music. It's such a waste that you've basically now quote unquote retired. And I'm like, yeah, it is, because like just considering like the amount of money my mum's invested and the amount of time I spent in my childhood just in front of the piano. But at the same time, I don't think I've completely lost it, because as I said, my mum only, the main reason for me playing in the first place was so when I'm older, I have something to do as a hobby. So that will always be with me now, because I've got to the level where it's like, I can like not practice and it will still be with me. And I can still enjoy music. And like, I guess if I had more certainty that I can get there, I would do it. But
do you feel like if we work backwards, like it is easy to look at these Lang Lang, Li Yundi, or whoever it is who've got there, but it seems to me, at least from my own observations, they didn't really have that certainty that they were going to get there until you get there. Like So
it's that one opportunity that changes.
It's that one opportunity, but like you need to be in the game to have a chance for that opportunity. And I'm very confident that for every Lang Lang, there are probably 1,000 different people who, had they also had that opportunity, could have been just as good. So do you feel like those people actually had more facility, or they just are a risk taker and they're just one of the rare lucky few that their risk paid off?
With Lang Lang, that's like, I'm pretty sure he had his breakout moment when it's like, when he was like a replacement concert pianist in a concert in Chicago.
And you can't plan that.
You can't plan that. It's like, if that didn't happen, we wouldn't know Lang Lang today.
Yeah. And it's like, who do we not know, right? There's so many people who we don't know.
I think maybe there's a difference between Asian like parents and white parents, or like non-Asian parents. No, but genuinely, like, I think, for example, if you look like, I think Westerners are probably, they have an actual like more genuine passion for music, whereas with Asians, it's more the validation and the potential fame and the potential financial rewards that comes with it. That's what I personally think. I'm sure Lang Lang obviously incredibly loves music, but I definitely think that plays a more of a part in Asian, pianists than Western pianists. But I think, I don't know, it's a gamble. I'm sure with Lang Lang's dad, because I've met him a couple of times before, and Lang Lang's dad was like, it was like from very early on.
You met him?
Yeah, I was in China. I don't know how I met him, but he's like, I went to the Royal Conservatoire of Music in Beijing, and I just like met him. I was like, but no, yes, I think it's very much like from very early on, you decide that this is the gamble you're gonna take, this is the route you're gonna take. I think with Lang Lang's dad specifically, he's a full-time mentor now. He's like, everything is geared towards Lang Lang. Whereas my mum can't really do that because first of all, she has to earn money. She also doesn't know much about music as much as Lang Lang's dad does. So it's like, it requires so many ingredients. I think Lang Lang's dad has everything. I'd say Lang Lang's dad probably has more to do with Lang Lang's success than Lang Lang himself. And it's like, because like that's he's the one who gets the opportunities for you. He's the one who like actually like teaches you when the teachers aren't here. He's the one who maintains your discipline. So I think if you don't have like a full-time dad like that, it's just everything's devoted towards your piano career, it's very hard. Yeah, that's my opinion.
So if you become a father, you have the skills, you have the knowledge, and you have the education. Would you try and model, maybe not precisely or exactly or wholly, but would you take inspiration from Lang Lang's dad to train your kids early so that they have a shot at...
If I like, when they're 4 or 5, first of all, if they have perfect pitch, and I can see like, oh, this, my son or daughter, oh, they're incredible at music, and they have the work ethic, why not, right? Why not? But I don't know. I think it's very cliche to say, oh, I'm just gonna let my kids like do what they love. Obviously, there's gonna be a certain interventionist policy right in there, but no, I think like having been through it myself, like hopefully I get like I become a corporate sellout in London after Cambridge and like earn enough money for a comfortable lifestyle, and again, very cliche, but I just want my kids to be happy. But no, I think if
beautiful destinations come from difficult roads.
Yeah, but as you said, whether like you actually need difficult roads is debatable, and I also think difficult roads can come in many forms, and so maybe difficult roads, I don't know. I haven't probably thought about how I'm going to be a dad. I mean, hopefully I don't do anything about it for another decade, but yeah.
So I guess like it is a constant tension of like how to raise children. How much pressure do you put on? Like obviously we're talking about Lang Lang's dad. I'm also thinking of like Andre Agassi, the tennis player, and how he ended up resenting his dad while also simultaneously appreciating that he wouldn't have had the life that he had without his dad. So it's a very obviously complex and very personal thing, but it seems like an underlying tension for you, and I'm sure you're not unique, and for many others, is that finance. Like,
yeah,
you're constantly making trade-offs and thinking about the opportunity costs and thinking about what your future would look like in terms of security, and rightfully so. Had you actually been from a family of, where money is just not a problem, like you could fail and you fall back on your millions and millions and millions, would you have gone for music? Because it wasn't for financial, right? Like you've already got the money, but to assert your perhaps influence, perhaps to gain prestige or power or recognition or validation, and to craft kind of your legacy in the world. Would you have gone for it if finance was not at all a consideration?
Yeah, I think I would have, but not because I would have gone for it, because when I was 4, it was not up to me, it was up to my mum. I think my mum would have still made me go for it, because my mum...
But like before you went to Harrow, you had that choice. So at that age, as a teenager, would you have gone for it if finance was not a problem at all? Would you have stayed?
That's such a difficult question, because like I'm not the one who decided. Well, I'm not the one who first said I don't want to do music anymore. It was my sister. But otherwise, I would have still. Honestly, I think probably yes, because I'm. Like this is a weakness of mine. At least when I was younger, which is like you're so focused on just practicing that you forget about the bigger picture. You don't think about the the trade-offs, consequences. You leave that to your mum, to your sister. So if I was like just doing piano like since the age of 4, that would just be so deeply entrenched and wired into my brain that I'd be like, there's nothing else to do. So I think I would have, but not because of any like visionary like from my part, but it's mainly just because like it's the easy way. It's a simple way to not think about anything else, because in a way practicing piano for so long it becomes a routine. You feel really safe in it. You feel like you're not doing anything that's like risky. You're just in your zone. So yeah, I think I would have stayed, but not in because of a good reason, but because it's just the easy way out.
Have you or will you ever regret not going all the way?
People have been telling me that I should regret it, but for some reason I don't regret it, because I genuinely don't think there was much of a chance for me to become a landlord. It's like because my sister went to like one of the best conservatoires in music, so she's seen it all. And she's not even the best one, and like even there, like if I did go there, I would be okay. I was great in Chetham's, but there are like there are certain Russians or Chinese, or like Japanese people, Koreans coming into the conservatoires in the UK that just mind-bogglingly good. So I was never going to outcompete them. So I guess but also because I got to perform my favourite classical music piece ever, Rachmaninoff 2, with a concerto, with the orchestra. That's like my dream fulfilled. That's like the peak. And so I don't think there was any point to go any further. So, and I'm also really loving life at Cambridge. Like, being at Cambridge, like that, it's not the fact that, it's an academically rigorous institution, but it's just a lifelong thing where you can be like, oh, I went to university in Cambridge, something like I'm really grateful to say, which I wouldn't have been able to say if I pursued music. So it's like, yeah, obviously there's a trade-off, but because
you're content.
Because the now, the present is so good, I'm not really regretting it. If I don't know, maybe if I'm like, University of Sheffield Hallam, maybe. Sorry to Sheffield Hallam people. It's like, yeah.
Okay, so nominations opens a campaign, so we're pulling the union now. So when you think about your journey thus far, of all the difficult roads and the beautiful destinations and the tensions that you faced, what led you to put yourself forward as debates officer of the Cambridge Union, which is a big responsibility, very public facing? You're shaping the student discourse or the politics discourse at Cambridge. Why?
Yeah, I think there are two main things. First of all, I was a competitive debater in school, right? So I was very much in the debating world. I only started when I joined Harrow, so only like sixth form, but then I got into the team really quickly. And I really just like the art of debating, because I think like it's incredible how like after, for example, the prop says something, you're like, okay, this is an incredible speech. There's no way anyone can ever refute this point. And the opportunity comes, is like, oh wait, there's so many faults in that. I think that's just the art of debating is so beautiful, and because I was in it, I really want to continue. Obviously, I know Thursday night debates are different from competitive debating because they're more performative, but I still very much think that there should be substance in every speaker's arguments and nuances that that correlate to competitive debating. Secondly, I think my experience and upbringing really matters, because like having been exposed to all these different cultures, and different cultures means different ways of life, different perspectives, different modes of thinking between different people. Like Arabs just think differently from Chinese people. Their ethos, their values in life. In Chinese, we call it Sengguan. I'm sure you know.
Sengguan, yeah.
I'm not sure the exact translation in English, but it's like the way...
价值观,
yeah,
世界观.
Yeah, exactly. It's like just the way you view the world is so different. So having been grown up, as a third culture kid and like in all these like international experiences, I think there's so much scope in debates to internationalize them, to make it more broad, to make it genuinely more thought-provoking, because I think a lot of the debates and motions were focused on like, okay, a lot of them are really interesting, like niche topics, like this house believes in loving God, or a lot of focus on Western politics, like Western intervention. But I think there's a lot of region-based specifics that not only help internationalize the debates for the sake of itself, but also it gives the members, it gives those who attend the debates something else to think about that they may not come across. I think there's so much scope to improve in that regards. I think that's why I offer, that's what I bring to the table, and that's why I'm running for debates officer. And
could you help maybe narrate your union journey thus far, from when you first joined and to this point of choosing to stand for election? How did you start, what role, and why? Just in your own words, narrate your union career.
Yeah, I started as an EM, so Cambridge Union was something that I was determined to be a part of even before coming to Cambridge. It's part of the reason why I chose to come to Oxbridge over like a US school. I mean, I didn't get into any of them anyways. Literally got rejected, all of them. But no, like Cambridge Union and Oxford Union, like it's just that thing where I've always wanted to be a part of. So like first thing, Freshers Week, the Freshers Fair, first thing I went to was the union table and spoke to Sal, spoke to so many different people, and they were like really enthusiastic, and I felt really welcomed by the committee there. So then I was like, okay, sign me up. So I was like the only fresher who was in full committee in Michaelmas, mainly because I was really keen. So like the sign up form wasn't really like public anywhere. So I asked like Sal for the link, and then he sent it to me. So it's like, so I was very much involved very early on, and I think being an EM, being on the door for every single event, that's so rewarding, because I've met so many incredible people there. Because like you just start small talk with them, you just start small chat, you get to know them, and you're like, oh wow, like so many. It's like you doing these podcasts, like as you said, one of the reasons why I do it at least is because it humbles you. It's the same with being an EM. It's like it humbles me with how many people with different stories and diverse backgrounds coming to the union all in one place and gathering, debating a certain idea, debating a motion. So yeah, that's been my journey, and I've been in EM for 3 terms now. So yeah, not really switched up anything, no publishing.
What's been your personal highlights in the union?
I was very lucky in the sense that I got to interview my favorite rapper. That's got to be my highlight. I was very lucky in the sense that I was a fresher and like just a mere EM, and got to interview Russ, who I invited under Sal's subcommittee, and then Sal and Chris George also very kindly gave me the interview position, and then meeting your idol, interviewing him, getting to know about his life story, because it's crazy, because he was genuinely my favorite rapper. He is genuinely my favorite rapper. So it's not just like a random celebrity. So I'm very grateful in that sense. I think that's also spurred me on to become even more involved in the union, just because like it provides you with opportunities that no other society can possibly offer you in Cambridge.
And correspondingly, when have you felt most lost, nervous, fearful, scared, or betrayed, or whatever it is, your low point in the union? Because it's a complicated environment, to say the least.
Yeah, I think obviously it has to be election season, right? It can get really toxic. It's like, as much as toxic, I also like, I don't know, like for example in Michaelmas, I was on one person's campaign team, and then there was other people's campaign teams who like would just be a bit more mean than they would usually be, and then like that would like affect me a lot. So sometimes I just walk into the orator, see some people that I don't want to see, and just walk straight out. But I think outside of the election season, everyone just reverts back to normal mode. Just because there's like, I think that's like I don't necessarily think anyone in the union is bad people, because I don't think they are. I just think people get it is competitive, and it's nice that it's competitive, right? Because you do want people with the best ideas forward to present themselves and to really fight for their place. But I think election season probably gets a bit intense, which is why like when I'm running, right now, I'm very much just focused on my own lane, just like doing my bit, presenting my case for why I should be the debates officer, giving my ideas why I think it would benefit the members the most. But I will, and I hope my competitors as well, I'm sure they will, stay in your own lane and, never cross a certain line, because that just defeats kind of the whole point of student politics, in my opinion. Yeah.
This is day 1 of public campaigning when this audio gets released. The next 6 days are going to be very character shaping for you. But before we get onto that, how do you envision the 6 days going ahead? Like, what are your campaign strategies that you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah. No, my campaign strategy is to just have fun with it. It's like, people have been telling me like, oh, you need to do this thing, you need to do this thing, you need like this manifesto, that poster, message this about people. But for me, I'd say my main forte as well is just to speak to people, get to know them. And then you present your case. If they want to vote for you, they vote for you. If they don't, then you are not convincing enough. That's on me. And so my strategy is mainly to just like be myself. So not really change who I am in the 6 days just because, I'm running an election. Because I think most of the time that actually backfires, because people can see right through it. And I also just like being myself, because if I do start to go to like the nitty gritty of, this strategy, this might squeeze in another extra 5 votes, that will affect my own mental health as well. I don't think that's worth it for student politics. I'd rather lose the election than like be so completely engrossed in this bubble that no one actually cares about outside the bubble. I was like, I also still want to be a normal person. I really, really, like, one thing I'm dreading about election is being seen as a union hack, which I am, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, like, I am more than that, and I don't want that to be my personality. I don't think I've made that my personality, thankfully. Well, at least I think that. Maybe other people think differently. But no, I just like to be myself, because, as I said, with the union, we are so privileged to be able to be in Cambridge and have the option to go to Cambridge Union, obviously, like, if you're privileged enough to pay the membership fees, and just meet those people, and that's what I'm going to do. And if that helps me win the election, great. If that doesn't, great. Like, life moves on, world still spins.
On your note of being yourself amidst all the chaos and stress and all the uncertainty, obviously manifestos, hustings give you a chance to show yourself, but it's very limited. It's very impression based and very clickbaity with social media and everything. You now have the space on this podcast, but what's like 1 or 2 things that you just wish other people just know about you, whether in relation to the campaign or just overall perhaps a misunderstanding that people already have or may have, but what would you like them to know? About Haiwei? Yeah, who are you? like
well, hopefully if you guys have all listened to 1.5 hours of me just speaking about my I don't know, I think it's very hard. Like, you can't really explain who you are, because my first impression of people is always when I meet them, right? Because, like, obviously this is a podcast for me to be able to say who I am, but at the same time it's an opportunity for me to show off in a way who I am for the election. But I think that's always very different from when you actually meet someone and you see their true colours. Even if it's just first conversation, just like little things like mannerisms, like eye contact, or like whether they actually like speaking to you, care about you, or if they're just like doing the motions. I think that's very hard to tell unless you actually meet someone. So I don't want to say who, because like anything I say is kind of like academic. So
okay,
obviously yeah. But yeah.
Let other people make their own judgments.
Exactly. I think that's the best way as well, just because if I don't win the election and if people, have questions about my character, that's something that I can look back on and improve upon. Hopefully I don't, but if there are ways that I can improve, like, I'm more than happy to use this election as an opportunity to improve myself, just in the long term. Because, like, as much as winning in the short term, winning this election would be brilliant, right, obviously, but winning in the long term in terms of learning how to, like, engage with people, learning, like, just basic stuff in just the social life in the world, and learning, like, just people connections and, like, just how human relationships work, that's so much more valuable, not only for your, like, long-term self, but just for your own benefit as a person, as a human being. I think that's much more valuable.
In the context of giving you a legacy-worthy interview, a meaningful piece of recording that you can look back on in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years' time, hopefully captures a current snapshot of who you are and what you think, and we'll both, again, listen back and just laugh at just how naive both of us are at this point in time. Are there anything else that you would like to share, or else I've got a couple final questions to conclude?
I don't know. I think nothing springs into my mind like, oh, is that right? No, I think like no, not really, because I think I'm very much I take pride in my background. I take pride in, like, how I've been raised and, like, my environment throughout my life. I think that defines who I am more than anything else. I think I've spoken about that already extensively.
Okay, actually, before the final two questions, you're just going to do a round of rapid fire questions, spontaneous, quick. I don't know where they're going to be. It'll be fun. Name the first word that come to mind.
Oh my god. David. Okay, I get the gist of the game now. I literally, my phone sat right in front of me. This is much harder than I thought, because one of my favorite YouTubers, Hugo Decrypt, he does this as well, and then, like, celebrities always like struggle with it. I'm like, this is so easy, but no. It's like, okay, I get the gist of the game now, though.
Okay, that was a warm up.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Favorite type of food?
Chinese. Actually, sorry, that's a lie. Shawarma, Kuwaiti food. It's like.
Favorite game?
Chess.
Sorry. Name one song that makes you very happy.
Penguins by Key Glock. It's a rap. Most people.
Favorite animal?
Dog, because I have a Westie.
What's one country that you like to visit?
China, just because I've never actually grown up there. It's my home. So I want to reconnect with my culture.
Most influential book?
Probably Bob Iger's book, on his time in Disney. Yeah.
Favorite season?
Usually people would say summer, but it can't be summer for me because Kuwait summer is like 60 degrees. So for me, it's more like autumn or spring. Yeah. And then winter in the UK is winter in the UK.
If you weren't studying history, what's another Cambridge degree that you
French, definitely. I love French. I was gonna do history and French, but then I didn't back myself because I know some French people apply. I was like, I'm not competing against the natives. So yeah.
If you were to do a PhD in history, what kind of area would that be in?
Probably in the Qing dynasty, or like just something like related to Chinese history in 20th century or 19th century, because again, it's like my culture, but I always feel like I don't know enough about it. But I really want to do know more about it.
If you could have a 1 hour conversation with any historical figure, dead or alive, who would that be?
Wow. There's so much. Probably Charles I, because I did the Stuarts for my A level, and I really want to know like why he was so adamant in his fight with Parliament. Yeah, very niche, but
All right. Second to last. From what I gather, you have obviously benefited enormously from the generosity of other people and the many communities that you've been a part of across the world and across various culture. And I know that gratitude matters a lot to you. I know that culture matters a lot to you. I know that I can feel just how much you appreciate the warmth that you have received, and just understand that your success now is not just your hard work, but it is also from the sacrifices and contributions of other people. So I think it would be remiss of us to end a legacy with the interview not explicitly acknowledging some of those people who have gone above and beyond to enable you and to put you in a position of where you are now. But to tie that with culture, could you please take this chance to thank people in all of the languages that you could speak, and you can divvy up the thanks in however way you want, but I would like you to demonstrate your Chinese, your Arabic, your English, and French perhaps. Divvy it up in the way you want, but use this as an opportunity to recognise all of those who have contributed.
Okay, let me start with obviously my family. So, 我想谢谢我妈妈和我姐姐，和我爸爸。我没有说 I haven't talked about my dad enough, but 我很非常非常 lucky 可以有这么多的鼓励和爱从他们，要不然我不会成为我今天的我。وبعد أكيد عائلتي الكويتية عشان هم أعطوني كل شيء بالكويت. أحب الكويت وايد. الكويت يعني الكويت بيت حقي، يعني أنا أحس إن أنا كويتي حتى إذا أنا مو كويتي صدق. وحتى كل أبلاتي بالكويت وبالبريطانيا كل مكان ما راح أكون أنا اليوم إذا ما عندهم. And yeah, so I thank my Kuwaiti family and everyone in Kuwait for my support. I thank my family in Chinese, but the rest I think like in English, because like I think all the teachers and educational institutions have provided me with so much, whether that's not only just piano teachers, violin teachers, or like ballet teachers, although I would like to give a special mention to my ballet teacher, who's been absolutely incredible, who knew about my family's financial struggles and thus gave us a much lower rate than she would to other people. But I would also like just to thank like my friends, because you learn so much from them, and I think that's the beauty of it. Like everyone's coming from different backgrounds, and even if they're not intentionally teaching you, you learn from them anyways, just because everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. Yeah,
that's beautiful. Okay, well, final question, the typical final one. I know you've listened to many episodes, but just thinking about, that little baby who was born, or who wasn't even sure if he was going to come into the world and was born and clearly cried very beautifully and got adopted, living a life of prince, but also seeing the contrast in socioeconomic inequality, 4 to 6 hours of piano a day, winning these competitions, performing in front of presidents, prime ministers, distinguished guests, moving schools out of the country, doing all their intense ballet, the blood, sweat and tear, literally making the tough decision between pursuing going all in on music or trying to live a more holistic life with academics, and getting to Cambridge and starting as an EM, being at the door, helping people, just all of that tied together, and now about to put yourself forward as a candidate for debates officer of the Cambridge Union, an institution that you've always wanted to join. What's one message, quote, or saying you wish every educator, teacher, community leader, coach would promote and every child would internalise? So your life philosophy at the moment summed up.
Be kind. Because as much as I talk about all these different skills or whatever, playing piano, they're all really good. They're good bonuses. But my mum always makes sure that you understand the basics, the fundamentals of life. Just be kind, because all the piano, all the violin, all the Cambridge, all the academics, go out the window if you're just a bad person, or if you're not a thankful person, if you're not grateful. I'd also say be grateful, because part of the reason why I'm so content right now and why I care about the election, but at the same time, I'm also taking it in a very I'm processing it in a very right way, is because I'm grateful about all the things I already have. And it'd be very, very obnoxious of me to forget about all the things I already have that other people don't, and only solely focus on the things that I still want. Be kind and be grateful, probably.
Haiwei, thank you so much. This has been tremendously inspiring, and I've always found you to be a cool and awesome and fascinating character, but I never really fully, I guess, appreciated your journey, and certainly amidst exam season, I appreciate you taking the time, and
thank you very much for you taking the time.
Last night we were both a bit sleep deprived.
Yeah, literally. I don't know. Wednesday revs, probably need to take a step back.
But I hope you've enjoyed the experience, and it's such a pleasure, and I hope we can maybe chat more off the record too.
Absolutely. I think tremendous podcast. You ask such good questions as well. I'm really thankful about that. Again, really grateful, not just for me, but for everyone that's been on your podcast, for you to be able to give this platform an opportunity for people to tell their story, because a lot of people have a story that they want to tell, but they're not sure if other people are interested or not. But coming to this podcast, I don't really care about if other people listen to it. It's for myself, 5-10 years time, my kids. So thank you very much for this, and hopefully we talk more after the podcast.
We'll do. Best of luck.
Thank you.